Jiang Shengsheng gave all her best youth to Lu Mingfei, but who knew that the man would cruelly abandon her? At this time, she met another man. When she lay in the arms of another man, Lu Mingfei, who had always ignored Jiang Shengsheng, realized how wrong he was. Hospital. Lu Mingfei looked at the test results in his hand, and veins on his forehead bulged. The arrival of this child was too unexpected. He wanted Zhou Yun to have the child aborted, but the child was almost 3 months old and it would be very risky to do so now. The doctor said that Zhou Yun's health was not very good and if she was forced to undergo surgery, her life would be in danger. No matter how you look at it, a human life is very heavy, and he can't be so cruel. Lu Mingfei was filled with anger, but he couldn't vent it at this moment. Su Yumei knew about this, and her face was not very good. It's really a bargain for her to marry this woman. Mingfei, you are the same, why don't you pay more attention? You have fallen into someone else's trap. Seeing Lu Mingfei's gloomy face, she sighed helplessly. Forget it, after all, the child is important. Even if Zhou Yun has accomplished nothing, at least she can still give birth to a child, which is better than Jiang Shengsheng who can't lay eggs. Hearing his mother speak such harsh words to Jiang Shengsheng, Lu Mingfei felt deeply stabbed in the heart. Mom, can you please stop being so malicious towards Shengsheng? Didn't she have a child before? If she hadn't gone through so much with me, that child would have been born healthy a long time ago. After saying this, he was stunned. Yes, he and Jiang Shengsheng had a child. At that time, he was the busiest in his career. He worked late into the night, and Jiang Shengsheng was busy running business. No one thought that they would have a child at that time. Later, Jiang Shengsheng fell ill and lost her child. He still vividly remembers Jiang Shengsheng lying on the hospital bed, crying and holding his hand to comfort him. It's okay, Mingfei, we will have children, and our lives will get better. At that time, he felt so distressed that he swore that he would never let her suffer any hardship or pain and would take good care of her. But now, only a few years have passed, and those words have been forgotten without him noticing. Su Yumei didn't expect him to react so suddenly and was very angry. Have you been drugged by her? You broke up with her, but you are still defending her. I'm not wrong. Now Zhou Yun's matter is here. It's too late for you to regret it. You can't just abandon your own son. Lu Mingfei did not tell Su Yumei that Jiang Shengsheng was dead. Even he himself didn't want to mention this matter, as if as long as he didn't mention it and no one asked, she would lie quietly in some corner of this world. He and Su Yumei had never been able to get along with each other. As things had developed to this point, he suddenly felt that this kind of life was suffocating. A mother who never understood him and a wife who was not loved and was like a vase. Lu Mingfei left Zhou Yun, who had just finished a pregnancy checkup at the hospital, and drove away alone. He desperately wanted to escape from this depressing city. However, after wandering around the city for a long time, I finally ended up at the funeral home for some unknown reason. Jiang Shengsheng was in there. A few days ago, the staff called and said that the body had been cremated and the family was asked to take the ashes away. But he never came, not because he didn't remember, but because he didn't want to admit this fact. He lit a cigarette in the car, and all he could see was a dark sky. It seemed that Yueqing was particularly cold this year. Lu Mingfei smiled silently. Shengsheng, I was wrong, I'm the bastard. He realized belatedly that he seemed to still love her, but he was too confident and thought Jiang Shengsheng would never leave him. Only when he truly realizes the loss, does he understand what he lost when he betrayed his feelings. In this world, apart from Jiang Shengsheng, no one else will love him like this. Haizhi is an isolated island with gentle sea breeze and spring-like scenery all year round. The golden sand beach in the seaside town stretches along the entire coastline, with no end in sight. The town is not very prosperous, but it is incredibly peaceful and beautiful. Occasionally, pedestrians passed by on the street, and they couldn't help but stop and take a closer look at the house with a yard full of flowers. There was a rocking chair in the yard. Jiang Shengsheng was sleeping on it with a thin blanket covering her. A 3 or 4-month-old kitten was sleeping comfortably in her arms. The sunlight shines through the gaps in the grape trellis and falls sparsely on her, giving her a kind of desolate beauty. Shengsheng, don't sleep anymore, go to the tavern and check it out. The person who called her outside the yard was Song Chan, who she invited to help her look after the tavern. When she was leaving Yueqing, her wallet was stolen on the road, and the ID card in the wallet also disappeared. It took her some time to get her documents reissued, and she finally decided to visit High City. Hearing Song Chan's voice, Jiang Shengsheng opened his eyes a little and coaxed the frightened cat in his arms. She arrived in High City a month ago, bought a pub, and used the little money left to her by Miss Jiang to buy this house so that she could start her own life. Seeing that she didn't move, Song Chan opened the gate and ran in. I told you to go to the tavern, and someone asked for you by name. Jiang Shengsheng's hands froze. She had just moved here and no one knew her. How could anyone find her way to the pub? She put the cat down and said, do you know who it is? Song Chan shook her head. He didn't say his name, it was a man. He said you two had a very good relationship before. Jiang Shengsheng didn't want to move at first, but the man found the tavern and would be able to find this place soon. She would have to see him eventually even if she didn't want to. It was dusk. The pub was located near the sea, and the balcony at the back door faced the sea. At this time, the golden sunset and the surging waves on the sea are broken into one piece, and when the sea breeze blows, the most beautiful highlights of life are everywhere. When Jiang Shengsheng arrived, there were not many people in the pub, and she saw the man sitting in the middle of the balcony at a glance. There were 2 empty wine glasses in front of him, and his eyes were looking aimlessly at the surging waves not far away. "It's you, long time no see." Before coming here, Jiang Shengsheng had guessed countless people, but she never guessed that it was Fu Jinji who came to see her. When she and Lu Mingfei had just started their business, she had collaborated with Fu Jinji many times. In fact, Lu Mingfei's success was due to the pushes given by Fu Jinji. Fu Jinji is a legend in the business world. The Fu family almost collapsed in the past, but at the age of 18, he pulled the Fu family out of the quagmire and re-expanded the business territory. Until now, the Fu family's businesses are spread all over the world, and they are all supported by him. But he is a low-key and cold person, and he is indifferent to everyone. Jiang Shengsheng has never spoken a few words to him before. She really respects and fears this man. However, his younger brother Fu Jinyan gets along well with her. When Fu Jinji saw her coming, there was still no obvious emotion on his face, and even his voice was so calm. "You are here, sit down." Jiang Shengsheng sat down opposite him. "Brother Fu, why are you here?" Fu Jinji uncomfortably turned his eyes away from her and drank the last sip of wine in the glass before speaking. "It was Fu Jinyan, who said that you seemed to be missing and asked me to look for you. You changed your number and he couldn't contact you, so he was a little worried." No wonder, Fu Jinji went to look for people personally. There was no doubt that he could find them. When she changed her number, she had no intention of contacting her ex-friends. She thought that no one in this world would care about her anymore. Unexpectedly, Fu Jinyan was such a loyal friend. Jiang Shengsheng didn't feel embarrassed, but smiled frankly. "Brother Fu, you know my health is not very good, so I want to say goodbye to the people and things in the past. If you go back, please tell Jinyan that I am fine and don't worry about me. After all, when cancer reaches its late stage, it is impossible to completely cure it. The setting sun gently falls on my face, the sea breeze blows, and the air is mixed with a faint smell of the sea." Fu Jinji tightened the cup in his hand and asked again, "Have you been to the hospital recently?" Jiang Shengsheng nodded. "It's not that hard to take the painkillers." After saying that, the air suddenly fell silent. She knew that Fu Jinji was a man of few words, and it was rare for him to ask her a question. "Okay, Brother Fu, I'll buy you the wine today. It's getting late, so I have to go back first." After saying that, she stood up to leave, and Fu Jinji also stood up. "I send you." She wanted to refuse, but seeing Fu Jinji already holding his coat and walking forward, she could only swallow her words. "The tavern is not too far from where I live, but it still takes about half an hour to walk there." The two walked halfway without saying a word. The only sound in their ears was the sea breeze and the scent of unknown flowers on the roadside. The setting sun gradually sank into the clouds, darkness slowly climbed up the treetops behind, and the street lights on the side lit up. Fu Jinji suddenly stopped. Jiang Shengsheng took 2 steps and stopped, then looked back at him. "What's wrong?" Under the street light, his shadow was stretched out long, and the light piled on his shoulders seemed a little heavy. He spoke with a hoarse voice. "I thought about it. If you want to bring it to Jinyan, I may not be able to help you. No matter how long the remaining time is, you have to do the farewell yourself." Jiang Shengsheng stood there in a daze. She didn't expect such words to come out of Fu Jinji's mouth. Farewell, it sounds like a very distant word, but in fact it is right in front of us. When I got home, I found that the flower stand in the yard had been blown down by the wind at some point, breaking several pots of flowers and making the yard look a bit messy. It's windy at the seaside, and the shelf is too light. It's always blown down by the wind. I guess I'll have to ask someone to help me fix it tomorrow. Jiang Shengsheng opened the door with a smile and poured a cup of tea on the tea table under the eaves. Fu Jinji casually put the coat in his hand on a chair beside him, rolled up his sleeves, and began to clean the wooden shelves in the yard. "Bring me the toolbox." Realizing that Fu Jinji wanted to help her repair the yard, Jiang Shengsheng hurried forward. "No need, Brother Fu, it's so late, I'll call someone tomorrow." Fu Jinji didn't stop moving his hands, but said, "You said before that you would buy a small house when you have the chance, plant flowers in the yard, and live a plain life. Now, you have got what you wanted, right?" Jiang Shengsheng looked at Fu Jinji in surprise. She had said this in private when she was chatting with Fu Jinyan before. How could he know? She really didn't quite understand this man. Why would someone as cold and indifferent as him ask about her affairs? But Jiang Shengsheng just nodded slightly. "I guess so." Fu Jinji then listened, stood up, looked back at her, and asked, "What else do you wish for?" "If you wish." Jiang Shengsheng smiled and said, "I have no wishes for a long time. After the yard was cleaned up, it was already too late. There was no hotel in the town, and Fu Jinji had drunk a little, so it was not convenient for him to drive. Jiang Shengsheng had no choice but to take the initiative and ask the person to stay for one night. Fortunately, she had enough rooms here, with 2 bedrooms upstairs and 2 downstairs. She lived upstairs, so she cleaned up the large bedroom next to the living room downstairs for Fu Jinji to stay in for one night. Although it might not be nice for a man and a woman to tell others about it, Fu Jinji is a well-known gentleman and also Fu Jinyan's elder brother, so she doesn't need to think too much about it. Before going to bed, she would stay in the living room downstairs and watch TV for 2 hours. Fu Jinji would sit quietly beside her with a laptop, watching some recent stock market news. The two of them had been sitting in the living room for more than an hour, doing their own things without saying a word. Jiang Shengsheng felt that the atmosphere was somewhat awkward, and he coughed uncomfortably. Brother Fu, shall I make you a cup of coffee? Fu Jinji then turned his eyes away from the computer and couldn't help frowning when he heard her words. I don't drink coffee, and you'd better not drink it either. It's already evening and it will affect your sleep. His tone sounded very serious, which made Jiang Shengsheng at a loss for a moment. Then, he saw Jiang Shengsheng was so embarrassed that he didn't know where to put his hands and feet, and then he understood. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at chatting. The company has been busy lately, and I want to deal with it quickly during this period of time, and then. He suddenly realized something and stopped talking after that. But after he finished speaking, the expression on his face became a little uncomfortable. He knew that he was a boring person. He could handle himself well in the business world, but he really couldn't talk to women about things other than business. Jiang Shengsheng had only seen him being decisive and resolute in business, but had never seen him having such a lovely side. She couldn't help but burst out laughing, but then realized it was impolite and quickly stopped smiling. Brother Fu, I used to think that you and Jinyan really didn't look like brothers at all, but today I realized that you two are actually quite similar. After saying this, the atmosphere seemed to become more relaxed. Fu Jinji closed his computer and started chatting with her like a friend. This is the first time I've heard someone say that Jinyan and I are a bit similar. Well, there is some difference in personality. Jinyan has often told me how strict you are with him. Am I being harsh? Jiang Shengsheng thought about it and shook his head. Not really, it's just that I rarely see you smile. If you smile more, there will definitely be a lot of girls who like you. Of course, there are probably many people who like Fu Jinji now, but most of them would be scared by his serious look and dare not approach him. As soon as the TV program is turned on, the screen immediately switches to cartoon images. She turned around and saw Fu Jinji holding the remote control and changing the program. These little gossips are boring. Fu Jinji seemed to be explaining it to her on purpose. But Jiang Shengsheng just slumped down on the sofa and glanced at Fu Jinji lazily. Then what do you want to see? Fu Jinji closed his computer, sat on the sofa next to her, and changed an entertainment variety show. Look at this. Jinyan can't help laughing every time he sees it. The way he spoke was so serious that you couldn't tell that he was someone who liked to watch this kind of entertainment program. Jiang Shengsheng, on the other hand, soon became very interested in the show and soon was laughing so hard that he was falling over. Tired of laughing, Fu Jinji poured some water for Jiang Shengsheng to take her medicine. After taking the medicine, she went upstairs to sleep. But that night Jiang Shengsheng tossed and turned in bed and couldn't fall asleep. Or maybe it was Fu Jinji's sudden appearance that made her feel uneasy. She couldn't tell what was wrong, but her heart felt like it was drowning, and she felt heavy. Early the next morning, Jiang Shengsheng washed up and went downstairs. He saw that breakfast was already prepared on the table and the freshly heated milk was still steaming. There was no one in the room, and it was so quiet that she felt suddenly lonely. Fu Jinji seemed to have left, but she changed her mind and thought that Fu Jinji was such a busy man, it was impossible for him to spend too much time with her. Knock, knock, knock. The next second, there was a knock on the door. Jiang Shengsheng came back to his senses and hurried to open the door. He saw Fu Jinyan standing at the door carrying 2 large suitcases and smiling in a way that made him deserve a beating. Jiang Shengsheng, you didn't expect it to be me, did you? We haven't seen each other for so long, do you miss me? As he spoke, Fu Jinyan carried his suitcase and walked in, not showing any shyness at all. Jiang Shengsheng peeked outside and confirmed that he was the only one there. How did you come? Fu Jinyan raised an eyebrow at her. Why? Only my eldest brother can come, but I can't? That's not what I meant. I meant. Before she could finish, Fu Jinyan interrupted her impatiently. All right, my brother has a very important meeting today. I'll come when he's not busy. I'll just have to stay here for the time being. Jiang Shengsheng was so helpless that he wanted to laugh. What's wrong with you? You suddenly want to live with me. It's inconvenient for a man and a woman alone. Don't you know it's inconvenient? Fu Jinyan had already laid down on the sofa and said lazily, anyway, you and Lu Mingfei have broken up, and no one cares about you. I just happened to be dragged by my old man to go on a blind date recently, so I came to your place to take shelter. You won't refuse to help me, right? Jiang Shengsheng has known this man for so many years and knows that what he says is only 30% credible. He just wanted to come and see her, his old friend, off for the last time because he knew his illness. He didn't want her to disappear from this world alone. Jiang Shengsheng didn't expose her, so he pointed to another room downstairs and said, then you can live here and clean up after yourself. Although you don't have to pay rent, you have to take care of your own food and drink. Okay. Suddenly having someone to accompany me, I feel like my originally empty heart has settled down. At night, Jiang Shengsheng watched Fu Jinyan sitting in front of the TV holding a bag of potato chips and watching the funny variety show she watched yesterday, and she felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. She gave everything in this relationship, but at the last moment, even a word of concern from that person was a luxury. But she hated even more, hated that man's betrayal, hated her own stupidity. She would never let Zhou Yun and Lu Mingfei get what they wanted and get together easily. Fu Jinyan, who was watching TV on the sofa, suddenly bumped her elbow lightly. By the way, Shengsheng, do you know what kind of person your mother was in the past? Jiang Shengsheng looked at him in surprise, not understanding why he suddenly asked about Miss Jiang. My mother? She's just a poor woman who was deceived. I still don't even know who my biological father is. She never mentioned that man to me. A complex look flashed across Fu Jinyan's face, perhaps it was a man's heartache for a woman. You would be happier if your family were with you, right? Especially when life is coming to an end, if you have the warmth of family, there will be fewer regrets, right? Fu Jinyan didn't have the heart to say the latter part, fearing that she would feel sad. Jiang Shengsheng spread his hands indifferently. You know that my only family member is Miss Jiang. If she is gone, I don't even have a home, so how can I have any family? However, after so many years, I have gotten used to it. When people are at their most vulnerable, family is always the most solid support and home is always the warmest harbor. It's not that she didn't have any hopes, but since she didn't have them in the first place, she gradually lost all expectations. Fu Jinyan patted her shoulder and said, Shengsheng, I'll take you to meet someone in a few days. Jiang Shengsheng was puzzled. Who? Don't tell me you found my biological father? You guess. Ever since this incident, Fu Jinyan has been acting a little strange today. He often answers the phone when Jiang Shengsheng is not around, and occasionally mentions her on the phone. Jiang Shengsheng had long been accustomed to his mysterious look and did not ask any more questions. It was not until 3 days later, when she was sitting on the sofa watching TV, that Fu Jinyan suddenly pulled her out. Didn't I say I'd take you to meet someone in the next few days? Did you forget? Jiang Shengsheng felt a strange feeling in his heart. He opened his mouth to ask, but Fu Jinyan took the lead. Don't ask who it is first. Just follow me. Are you afraid that I will sell you out? After all, they have been friends for so many years, and Jiang Shengsheng still trusts Fu Jinyan very much. She simply packed up and followed him out. Fu Jinyan took her to an upscale tea house in the city center, which was a place where businessmen like them often came to discuss business. Fu Jinyan is a frequent customer here. He had someone reserve a seat before coming, saying he was here to taste tea. The tea room we reserved was the quietest one in the inner room. It was not big and decorated in a retro style. As soon as we opened the door, we could smell a faint scent of tea. Jiang Shengsheng followed him in and saw a gray-haired man sitting inside. The man raised his eyes and looked directly at Jiang Shengsheng, his voice trembling slightly with excitement. You are Shengsheng? Jiang Shengsheng? In the tea room, the tea master has already brewed the tea, and the air is filled with the fragrance of tea. Jiang Shengsheng sat in the middle, looking at the old man in front of him. He claimed to be Miss Jiang's father, that is, her grandfather, Jiang Zonghua, the old man of the Jiang family in Nancheng. She was not actually familiar with Nancheng Jiang Shengsheng, but she knew the Nancheng Jiang family, a century-old family business like the Fu family. The Jiang family started out in the coal business, and now they are leading companies in the industrial and high-paying technology industries. Mr. Jiang has a high status in the business community. Jiang Shengsheng was a little bit unconvinced. You must have made a mistake. My mother is just an ordinary person. There is no mistake. Your mother is the daughter I have been looking for more than 20 years. Unfortunately, when I found her whereabouts, she was gone. Your mother was deceived and had you. I felt that the Jiang family couldn't afford to lose face, so I said something in anger and told your mother that if she gave birth to you, she would no longer be a member of the Jiang family. When Jiang Zonghua talked about the past, his face was full of regret and sorrow. But your mother was stubborn and insisted on giving birth to you. After leaving South City, she completely cut off contact with the Jiang family. Later, I regretted it and wanted to ask your mother to come back, but I could no longer find you and your daughter. Jiang Shengsheng was born in the 1990s. At that time, communication and transportation were not convenient. Miss Jiang deliberately avoided the Jiang family, so it was normal that she could not be found. Jiang Shengsheng looked at the man in front of him who claimed to be his grandfather, but he did not feel the joy of reuniting with a close relative. Instead, he felt uncomfortable. She always knew that Miss Jiang was deceived by a man when she was young, so Miss Jiang hated her existence. But Miss Jiang never mentioned the Jiang family in Nancheng. When the family was in the most difficult times, Miss Jiang worked all night long to help others with housework and never thought of returning to the Jiang family and bowing to her father. Jiang Shengsheng thought that Miss Jiang must be quite resentful of the man in front of her. Because when she was most sad, her father also gave up on her. Did your mother leave any words when she left? Jiang Shengsheng shook his head, no. To be honest, she always felt that Miss Jiang was probably the most emotionally indifferent person in the world. In the end, she left the world so decisively without even saying goodbye. She never understood Miss Jiang, let alone her emotional life. But Jiang Shengsheng hesitated and said she was not happy when she was alive. Maybe leaving her is a relief for her. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Jiang Zongguo's eyes turned red at some point and he turned around and secretly wiped away his tears. After a while, Jiang Zongguo suggested, Shengsheng, since we have found you this time, Grandpa still hopes that you can return to the Jiang family to recognize your ancestors and let your mother rest in peace. Jiang Shengsheng had no good luck in her life. Unexpectedly, before she died, she suddenly turned from an orphan into the apple of the eye of the Jiang family in Nancheng. The identity of the daughter of the Jiang family is not something that everyone can reach. Even if Lu Mingfei meets her in the future, he will have to be polite. After all, offending the Jiang family means ruining his own financial future. But Jiang Shengsheng did not agree immediately. To her, relatives are relatives. After all, they are connected by blood. Recognizing one's ancestors is just a ritual and is not that important. Besides, her illness wouldn't last long, and she wouldn't need to leave too many ties to her family. Mr. Jiang thought she was still unable to accept it, so he didn't force her. Shengsheng, I know this is too sudden for you, but it doesn't matter, take your time, Grandpa doesn't want to control your life now, Grandpa respects you no matter how you want to live, but Grandpa is old, I hope you can come to South City to see Grandpa more often, or even have a meal with Grandpa. As people get older, they feel the value of family affection more and more. Jiang Shengsheng made it clear that although she could not fulfill her filial duties for her mother for long, it would be good to do more to comfort the old man. In the end, Jiang Shengsheng and Fu Jinyan had dinner with the old man, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. After the meal, Jiang Shengsheng sat in the back seat of the car with his eyes closed, on the way back without saying a word. Fu Jinyan thought she was unhappy and gently poked her elbow. Shengsheng, don't be angry. My eldest brother said that someone has been looking for you everywhere recently. After asking around, I found out that it was Mr. Jiang looking for his granddaughter. I thought that since you are sick and have no relatives around you, you would be happy to have relatives, so I wanted to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect you to feel uncomfortable. But the person next to me closed his eyes and didn't respond. I could only hear the sound of his even breathing beside me. Fu Jinyan tilted his head to look at her carefully for the first time. In recent times, her complexion had been getting worse and worse. She had difficulty eating only a small bowl of food, and there was almost no flesh on her face. Even if she smiled occasionally, it wasn't because she was really happy. Fu Jinyan suddenly realized that he was witnessing a death, witnessing a living person slowly and firmly saying goodbye to him forever. This realization brought him a palpitation. This good friend in front of him would one day completely disappear from his life. He slowly reached out his hand, wanting to push the strands of hair away from her eyes, but his fingertips stopped half an inch away from her. Some people can only watch from afar. Once they start to have delusions, they will push themselves into the abyss. Fu Jinyan has always been sober and rational when it comes to feelings. He just quietly withdrew his hand and drove her home. Just now in front of Mr. Jiang, Jiang Shengsheng forced himself to eat more, and when he got home he started vomiting until he vomited blood. She was used to it, and after swallowing a few painkillers, she was completely exhausted. She knew that she didn't have much time left, but she still had things to do. Lu Mingfei's betrayal and Zhou Yun's provocation will not be treated as if they never happened just because she left. She has to give herself an explanation for the past 8 years. At least until now, she has not heard that Zhou Yun and Lu Mingfei have had a further relationship, and the fact that she and Lu Mingfei broke up is probably only known to Fu Jinyan and the others. Although Lu Mingfei's current influence is still far less than that of the Jiang and Fu families, those gossip magazines should be very interested in the news about the emotional entanglements of these wealthy families. She sent the video she had taken of Lu Mingfei and Zhou Yun having an affair in the villa to a gossip magazine that had some influence. She wanted to see what kind of clumsy lie Lu Mingfei would use to cover up the matter. However, what Jiang Shengsheng did not expect was that this news made the headlines of major commercial and entertainment news the next day. It seemed that Lu Mingfei had become a big celebrity overnight, and was worthy of being reported by major news media. It was not until I went downstairs that I saw Fu Jinyan lying lazily on the sofa, watching the news and smiling from ear to ear. Shengsheng, look, Lu Mingfei must be angry and embarrassed about his romantic scandal. Well done. Jiang Shengsheng rolled his eyes at him angrily. You did this, didn't you? Lu Mingfei doesn't have such a big influence that so many gossip magazines would focus on him. Fu Jinyan did not comment. Who told you to expose the magazine? The magazine is under my name. Given our relationship, how could I stand by and watch? Seeing Zhou Yun being labeled as 3, Jiang Shengsheng felt a little relieved. Then thank you very much. I just want to see how Lu Mingfei will protect her this time. Joyful City. Lu's building. The office of the group's public relations department was in deathly silence, and Lu Mingfei sat in the main seat with a gloomy face. With such big news, why didn't the PR department find the source of the news immediately and cover it up? Lu Mingfei was very angry. Because of this piece of news, the group's stock had been falling since this morning. The PR manager wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, it's like all these media outlets broke the news together. None of them gave us the news in advance. We wanted to keep it secret, but we have no place to spend the money. Lu Mingfei's face turned even more gloomy, but the truth had already been revealed, and even if he wanted to pursue the matter it would be useless now. He could only try his best to redeem himself. After all, his face was completely lost and the company would be the biggest impact. Now that things have happened, what is the solution? Well, we discussed it and felt that it is most important to clear your conduct now. We can issue a statement saying that you and President Jiang had already parted ways peacefully. Even if there are many speculations outside, they are talking about Zhou Ju. Although it may sound a bit harsh, it will not have much impact on the company. Lu Mingfei's expression eased a little. Okay, let's do it quickly. After the meeting, Lu Mingfei still sat there, tapping the edge of the table with his fingers, thinking about something. Although he was reluctant to tell everyone that he and Jiang Shengsheng had broken up, facing the reality, he would still give up those fictitious things without hesitation. Because no matter what he said, Jiang Shengsheng is no longer in this world and no one can verify it. Suddenly, he remembered something. Since Jiang Shengsheng is no longer with us, how did the video get leaked? Could it be? However, he quickly denied his own thoughts. He went to the police station in person to pick up her body. How could there be any mistake? That is to say, someone picked up Jiang Shengsheng's mobile phone and leaked these videos. So, someone is secretly doing something to him. He was feeling annoyed when Zhou Yun called again. Mingfei, what does the company's new statement mean? Now a lot of people are speculating below, saying that I interfered in your relationship with Sister Shengsheng, which led to the breakdown of your relationship. You should take care of them. Lu Mingfei replied indifferently. They weren't completely wrong, were they? Zhou Yun on the other end of the phone was furious. Not only was she being chased and called a mistress, but even Lu Mingfei's attitude towards her suddenly turned cold. She should have known long ago that a man like Lu Mingfei had no true feelings. If she hadn't been pregnant, her fate would probably be even worse than Jiang Shengsheng's. But things have come to this point, she can't exhaust Lu Mingfei's last bit of patience, so she can only pretend to be aggrieved. Mingfei, I know it's wrong to fall in love with you behind Sister Shengsheng's back, but the child is innocent. Can you bear to let him be scolded by others in the future? Sure enough, children are now Lu Mingfei's weak point. After all, life must go on, and at his age, it's time for him to have a child. Speaking of children, Lu Mingfei's tone became a little better. Okay, I'll announce our marriage when the right opportunity presents itself. That's all. I still have to go to a meeting. After hanging up the phone, Lu Mingfei felt even more tired. If it was Jiang Shengsheng, she would never cry or make a fuss with him. She has always been the person who made him least worried. If only I could do it again, if only I could do it again.